Jinx is dropping out of the ADC top 3 for the first time in a while, Jarvan is entering the top 3 for jungle due to his buffs, and we have so much more to cover as we provide you guys with 3 of the best solo carry champs for every single role in 25.6. And are you sick of losing games from bad teammates? Well, at SkillCapped, we turn your frustrating losses into satisfying wins. Take our wildly popular exclusive courses that teach you the secrets to winning as a top laner, jungler, mid laner, AD carry, and support. Then pair that with our other courses on how to counter OP top and mid laners, master your jungle clears, or check out our bronze to diamond series. We even have courses on macro, wave control, trading, settings and hotkeys, CSing, vision, mechanics, low elo mistakes, and the list goes on. Then head on over to our Smurf commentaries. Simply select the champion you want to master and get guides from challenger experts teaching you how to play your champion in the exact rank you're stuck in. Our service really does work. That's why we offer a rank up guarantee. If you don't rank up while actively using SkillCapped, you get your money back, no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below right now to get the rank you've always dreamed of. We've got a bit of a new look to the top lane solo carry list for 25.6 as Quinn will be slotting in. Back at the start of the season, Quinn was a pretty average champ, sitting slightly below a 50% win rate, but she's become so much stronger as of recent. Quinn's W attack speed got directly buffed while Electrocute was buffed as well, and this has led to Quinn absolutely dominating the top lane meta in solo queue. The Electrocute buff was especially big for Quinn because 20 added damage to a rune that you can consistently proc off cooldown in lane adds up very quickly. 20 damage in a vacuum may not seem like that big of a deal, but in a lane that lasts for multiple minutes, it can lead to hundreds of additional damage dealt. Knowing how to trade optimally in lane is really key to unlocking Quinn's full potential, and our new top lane course on trading is a great resource to help you out. We actually have 6 brand new top lane courses on our website that are designed to have you stomping games in no time. So if you're serious about climbing as a top laner this season, it's the place to be. What's so great about Quinn for solo queue is that she can dominate lane and then spread her lead across the map incredibly well due to her R providing all that movement speed. You take symbiotic souls for your boots on Quinn so that your roam power is even stronger. For the rush item on Quinn, you grab Profane Hydra as the splash damage helps you shove out waves super fast so that you can get to roaming. It's a full lethality core on Quinn right now with the Collector slotted in second while Edge of Night or Lord Doms are good third. Lord Doms is optimal against more tanky comps while Edge of Night is best into squishier bursty champs. There's one matchup that you will want to avoid at all costs when picking Quinn, and it's Malphite. Malphite loves to stack armor, so it's more difficult for Quinn to really snowball off of him, and then if games do drag out, Mal's teamfight impact is going to outweigh Quinn's. If you don't have Urgot in your champion pool for top lane yet, then you're really missing out on easy elo. Urgot has been one of the longest standing solo carry champs on our list, and it honestly doesn't even look like he's going to be nerfed anytime soon. Of course, now that we've said that, Riot probably slips in an Urgot nerf for next patch. Now, what makes Urgot such a strong solo queue champ for the average player is that he can deal incredible consistent DPS while being pretty tanky at the same time. And Urgot in the mid game with his Black Cleaver and Steric's Gauge completed is one of the best skirmishing top laners there is. W will be fully maxed out by then and passive cooldown will be at 2.5 seconds. Leading up to your big mid game spike, Urgot's early laning is actually quite strong too, so his only big weakness is his late game if up against comps with high mobility or kiting power. It's really just ranged top laners that you'll want to avoid playing against, as Quinn, Heimer, and Vayne are a few of Urgot's more difficult matchups. Luckily though, none of those champs are really picked very much in meta, so you can usually get away with not banning any of them. Quinn is actually seeing a bit more play though as of late, so she's the best ban to consider out of those 3. For the Keystone rune on Urgot, you can't go wrong with taking Press the Attack in every single game, but if you're up against a ranged top or a comp that has lots of mobility, then going Phase Rush is quite underrated. So after receiving buffs for 2 consecutive patches in a row, Poppy will be joining the solo carry list for 25.6. With Garen getting nerfed for this patch, it's great for Poppy too, as that has been one of her few negative win rate matchups in recent patches. Poppy is an extremely good answer to many other meta picks though, as she wins a ton into Aatrox, Ambessa, Jace, Cassante, Yone, and Aurelia. Basically any champ who has a dash in their kit, Poppy is going to have a pretty good time against due to her ability to interrupt dashes with her W. That's one reason why Garen fares better against Poppy, because her W doesn't have any value in the matchup due to Garen not having a dash. Mordekaiser is another matchup that can be a bit rough for Poppy, so either him or Garen are who we'd recommend you use your ban on. Poppy is quite a unique top lane champ in the sense that she has this hybrid build that lets her play more like a fighter early on and a tank as games drag out. By going for a Sundered Sky Rush, you deal a lot more damage than you'd expect, and because Poppy top has not been in meta for a while, your opponents definitely won't be expecting this damage either. After Sundered Sky, it's Winter's Approach second, and then Unending Despair third as the standard core. If the enemy comp is very heavy AD without any magic damage, then you can swap Unending Despair for Iceborne Gauntlet. The best rune page for Poppy consists of Grasp with Shield Bash, Second Wind, and Revitalize, while Mana Flow and Scorch are for secondaries. A bit of a surprise to see Jarvan on the buff list for this patch, as he's already been a very solid pick in recent patches, so he's moving up into the top 3. In terms of a strong early game ganking jungler, there's nobody that rivals Jarvan for 25.6. So if you want to play someone who can be proactive early on and look to snowball your lanes, then Jarvan should be the highest priority. When in a good spot like he is right now, Jarvan is such a great solo queue pick because of his ability to snap engage from such a long range. Finding picks on enemy squishies is extremely easy with Jarvan, and if you get a lead early on, snowballing that lead is easier with him than most champs. Banning out a champion who's going to disrupt your engage power is always a good idea when picking Jarvan, and right now Braum or Lulu are two good options. You go quite offensive with your 2-item core on Jarvan, as it's an Eclipse Rush into Sundered Sky second. Third item really depends on who the enemy team's biggest damage threat is, as Spirit Visage is great into magic damage, while Frozen Heart works best into heavy AD. The rune page is going to consist of Conqueror with Triumph, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace, followed by Free Boots and Cosmic Insight for secondaries. So even with the nerfs coming through this patch, we still think Darius will remain in a powerful spot, and he's back in the top 3 for jungle. The nerf is to Darius's passive damage to monsters, going from 300 to 200%. So Darius Clear won't be as OP as before, but his skirmish power and mid-game power spike won't be getting any weaker. Even if Darius ends up losing 3% win rate from this nerf, he will still be in a great spot due to holding a disgusting 54% win rate in 25.5. The build that you run on Darius jungle makes him incredibly OP as you rush Ghostblade and take Boots of Swiftness. You get 500 movement speed with the Ghostblade active popped, which is just ridiculous when skirmishing, as actually kiting Darius becomes very difficult for enemies. On top of this, you have your Phase Rush proc that will provide even more movement speed, so reaching your target and then continuing to stick onto them is no problem at all when running this setup. You don't really gotta worry about banning a specific jungler when picking Darius, so just getting rid of a support who has easy ways to limit your skirmish power is a good idea, and Braum or Lulu are two good options in meta. And making his way into the jungle top 3 for this patch due to his buff is Xin Zhao. Very much like Jarvan, Xin has already been in quite a good spot over the past few patches, so his buff will really push him over the top. The buff is to Shin's Q, and because the spell is point and click, it's just guaranteed added damage for when you're skirmishing. With Xin Zhao, you've got some of the best early game gank threat for any jungler. So if you like playing those junglers who can get the ball rolling early on, Xin is a great pickup. Meta builds are all over the place on Xin Zhao right now, as Sundered Sky and Eclipse are the more popular rush items. However, Titanic Hydra has the higher win rate by a significant amount. Titanic Rush is winning upwards of 53% as opposed to Eclipse and Sundered Sky, which are down around 50.5%. What's really nice about Titanic is that it heavily amplifies the early clear speed of Xin Zhao so that he can be on the map more often and looking for ganks. Being able to pick up an early Tiamat and getting that splash damage on camps is great for Xin, considering he's not a champ who has a super impactful lower cooldown AoE spell like many other junglers do. So for the core build that you should be playing for this patch, it's a Titanic Hydra Rush into Black Cleaver second and Sterix Gauge third. Since Xin Zhao is a champ who needs to be up in melee range to be effective, banning out a meta peel support like Braum or Lulu is a good idea right now. For Shin's rune page, look to grab Conqueror with Triumph, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace, while Free Boots and Cosmic Insight are for secondaries. If you really want some free elo from the mid lane right now, then Cho'Gath is still in an amazing spot. Even after the nerfs from last patch, Cho win rate only dropped about 1%, which was not nearly enough to remove his high standing in meta. What's making Cho'Gath mid so strong right now is his movement speed build of Shurelya's, Deadman's Plate, and Symbiotic Souls. With Shurelya's being a super cheap item, you are able to hit that spike very early on in the game, and once you have the item, the champ becomes unlocked. Cho'Gath literally has point and click true damage with his R, so the only issue he runs into is actually getting in range to use the spell. Well, this build completely removes that weakness, as the Shurelya's active helps him close the gap effortlessly and get right on top of his target to burst him out with zero counterplay. Now, contrary to tank Cho'Gath maxing his E out first, you want to max your Q first with mid lane Cho so that you can shove waves super quick and have perma priority in lane. If you constantly have the enemy shoved in under tower, then you can roam first and impact that map very well. It's going to be ranged champs with high mobility who you're going to struggle against the most as Cho'Gath mid, so banning out Ahri is a good idea. Cho loves playing into most melee mids, as he has over a 54% win rate into Yasuo, Zed, Katarina, and Yone. For Cho'Gath's Keystone rune, you will be taking Hail of Blades so that you're able to proc all 3 charges of your E instantly and burst targets out as fast as possible. To learn more about Cho'Gath mid, we have a detailed guide for him on our website along with a full game commentary, so lots of content to get you stomping with the champ. A mid lane champion who's been really under the radar as of late, who we're featuring in the top 3 for this patch, is Annie. There's many reasons to why Annie has been on the rise for this season. First is that she's an amazing Axiom Arcanist user, as Annie is so reliant on her R to full combo squishy champs, so the added damage and lower cooldown for R that the rune provides is incredible. Electrocute buffs from a few patches back were the tipping point for Annie to reclaim an S tier spot for solo queue, as she can get so much value out of the buff due to the fact that she can proc the rune very reliably off cooldown with her long range autos and guaranteed damage from Q. And then there's also a more underrated core build that has been giving Annie a lot of strength, but most players are not taking advantage of it. The core consists of a Malignance rush into Liandry's second and Rylai's third, and this build just heavily amplifies the strength of Annie's R. With Tibbers proccing the slow from Rylai's, it's going to be able to get a ton more autos off in fights, applying the burn damage from Liandry's and just dealing so much consistent DPS. The build also makes Annie more tanky with all the health it provides, which is really nice to have for a shorter range champ. Being that Annie is shorter range, she's going to struggle a bit more against longer range champs, so in that case, banning out Syndra is good value. Here's a look at the complete rune page for Annie as you grab Electrocute with Cheap Shot, Grizzly Mementos, and Ultimate Hunter, followed by Axiom Arcanist and Absolute Focus for secondaries. The one mid lane champ who continues to remain a staple in the top 3 for the past few patches is Ahri. Ahri currently holds the highest play rate for any mid laner in solo queue, and it's for good reason. You can blind pick Ahri and do pretty well into most matchups, and then once you get level 6 is where Ahri is truly unlocked. Really try and play off your jungler when you hit 6 with Ahri and make plays with them around the map, as the long range gap close that Ahri has with her R allows you to skirmish really well and catch enemies off guard. What makes Ahri such a great solo queue champ is her ability to find those catch plays all by herself and provide her team with numbers advantages. You should always be trying to position yourself in the fog of war with Ahri and be ready to catch enemies out that are either pushed up too far or that face check into you. It's all about playing off your ultimate's cooldown with Ahri, and you run a very heavy haste stacking build to help with that by rushing Malignance and going Horizon Focus second. The complete rune page consists of Electrocute with Taste of Blood, Grizzly Mementos, and Ultimate Hunter, followed by Mana Flow and Transcendence for secondaries. This patch is absolutely filled with nerfs to ADCs, and it's going to indirectly benefit Tristana a bunch. We already had Trist in the solo carry top 3 last patch, but with nerfs to Caitlyn, Corki, Draven, Ezreal, and Jinx, Tristana is set to take over the meta. Everything has been trending in Tristana's favor as of late, with her 2 core items getting buffed, other ADCs getting nerfed, and more aggressive melee supports like Thresh and Nautilus receiving buffs. Trist is an ADC who loves playing with more aggro melee supports, as she has such great follow-up all-in power for when any sort of crowd control lands. Few ADCs can match the straight-up all-in power of Tristana, as a fully charged E combined with the attack speed steroid she gets from Q allows her to burst really hard. What's really nice about Trist is that she's an ADC who's less reliant on her support because she can punish enemies mispositioning all by herself due to the engage potential from W. Especially if you get ahead early on with Tristana, the champ can delete a squishy at level 6 all by herself, so if the enemy support leaves lane to go roam or ward, you can instant punish that. Since you want to be as aggressive as possible in lane with Tristana, banning out a support who's going to shut that down like Karma or Lulu is a good idea. The optimal core build for Tristana is going to consist of a Yuntal Wild Arrows or Collector Rush into Infinity Edge second and Flicker Blades third. The Collector will be the stronger 1 item spike for Trist, but when you reach 2 items, Yuntal will outscale due to its stacking crit, so if you're really accelerated early on, then going for the Collector is great, but if you are even or behind, then grabbing Yuntal is better. As for the Keystone Rune, both Press the Attack and Lethal Tempo are viable for Tristana. PTA will be the most valuable when you're paired with an engaged support, as the higher burst damage will help you follow up better, while Lethal Tempo is best when with an Enchanter, since you will need more extended fights to win out. Just like Tristana, moving up even higher on the priority list for solo queue this patch is going to be Vayne. Vayne's back in the top 3 for ADC this patch, as there's no reason to drop her out with so many other ADCs around her getting nerfed. Where Vayne's really going to come online is at her 2 item spike of Blade of the Ruined King and Rage Blade. Consistent DPS goes through the roof, and you have no problems at all outplaying dive champs. This is where Vayne has the edge up on many other ADCs, as her self-peel from E and mobility from Q allows her to fend for herself very well in fights and not rely as much on her support for protection. The only bigger downside to Vayne is that she's shorter ranged, and this can be exploited in lane by longer ranged ADCs. For this reason, using your ban on Caitlyn or Ashe is always good value. Kate is actually getting nerfed for this patch, so matchup won't suddenly be favored for Vayne, but it will become slightly more manageable. The standard core build for Vayne consists of a Blade of the Ruined King rush into Rage Blade second with either Wit's End or Terminus third. Prioritize Wits if the enemy comp has a few magic damage threats, and if not, go for Terminus. As for the rune page on Vayne, it's Lethal Tempo with Triumph, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace, followed by Conditioning and Overgrowth for secondaries. So with all the different ADC changes for this patch, making her way back into the top 3 is going to be Miss Fortune. With how easy it is to pick up Miss Fortune and how good she will be for this patch with so many ADCs getting nerfed, there's really no reason to not have her in your champion pool. Something that's really nice about Miss Fortune is that you can adapt your build really well to the tune of what the enemy team consists of. Into heavy squishy comps, you can just run a lethality core of Ghostblade and the Collector and delete enemies with a single R usage. If you're into more tanky comps though, where you'll need to be autoing a bit more frequently to take enemies down, going for a crit core Bloodthirster into Essence Reaver will have your auto attacks hitting a bit bit harder. And of course, Misfortune is one of the few ADCs who gets to abuse how broken Boots of Swiftness are for this season, as you can become extremely mobile in the mid game with Swifties and Ghostblade active popped. Movement speed doesn't really counter long-range hard engage though, so using your ban on a meta dive champ like Nocturne or Jarvan is a good idea. The best rune page for Misfortune revolves around First Strike with Cashback, Biscuits, and Jack of all trades, followed by Mana Flow and Gathering Storm for secondaries. Of all the roles, support was the one changed the least for this patch, so we've got Braum back in the top 3. Braum is the best melee support for solo queue right now, as his skirmish power is unmatched, and he does an amazing job at shutting down all other melee supports. Most melee supports want to be able to catch you out and chunk you after landing their CC, but Braum has the ability to block damage with his E, combined with the resist that he gets from using W, which completely shuts down the game plan of engaged supports. Over the past patch, Braum has literally been winning over 55% of the time in the Nautilus and Blitz matchups, so his specialty is shutting down those hook supports. Into range supports, it can be a little bit more difficult in lane with Braum, but if you can survive and go even, then once you start skirmishing, your impact around those Grub, Dragon, or Otacon fights will be incredibly high. Senna is one range support Braum players tend to struggle more against, so using your ban on her is good value. The core build for Braum consists of a Locket Rush into Knight's Vow 2nd, while Solstice Slay is the item upgrade. It's going to be Guardian for the Keystone rune with Font of Life, Bone Plating, and Unflinching, while Biscuits and Cosmic Insight are the best secondaries. Not too far in behind Braum, and the runner-up when it comes down to engaged supports for solo queue is Thresh. Thresh is a support with such great impact for solo queue because he can do a little bit of everything. You have the ability to find catch plays with Q, which can be absolutely game-changing, while at the same time, you've got incredible peel power with all the CC and the long-range peel strength that Thresh W provides. The sky's the limit with Thresh, as the more games you put in, the more you're going to get out, and it's pretty unlikely he gets nerfed anytime soon, so now is a great time to pick him up. There's really just one matchup in meta that you will want to highly consider banning out right now, and it's Braum. Braum's incredible disengage strength just makes it really hard to actually capitalize on hook plays in lane, so your ability to snowball is very limited in the matchup. Even if you do land a hook in the Braum matchup, taking it is often just suicide due to Braum's incredible re-engage power that he has. The optimal build for Thresh consists of a Locket Rush into Knight's Vow 2nd, while Solstice Slay is the item upgrade. Aftershock is the most consistent Keystone rune on Thresh for solo queue, as it's very easy for him to proc his E, and the tankiness it provides helps a ton when diving into fights. And rounding out the top 3 for support in 25.6 is going to be Nami. So with Karma being tagged with a nerf for this patch, it's going to widen the gap between Nami and Karma, and Nami will be the best solo queue enchanter now. Lucian buff for this patch is amazing for Nami as well, as that's her most common duo in solo queue, so lots of things going in Nami's favor in 25.6. Where Nami is going to outshine most other enchanters is in her ability to not only provide utility for her carries, but buff up their damage by a significant amount. Nami's E, combined with the bonus damage proc from her rush item being Imperial Mandate, gives your ADC some really nice upfront burst power. If you get ahead early on with Nami, she's one of the best enchanters at actually being proactive with the lead and continuing to force the issue. The only thing Nami's vulnerable to is getting picked off and bursted out due to her more squishy nature, so banning a meta hook support like Thresh is a good idea. The optimal rune page for Nami consists of Airy with Mana Flow, Transcendence, and Scorch, followed by Bone Plating and Revitalize for secondaries. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So that's gonna wrap everything up for the 25.6 update on the best solo carries. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.